Mr. Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start today by being able to submit an article for the record that ran in Monday's Washington Examiner op-ed column. It's a joint op-ed that you and I wrote, Mr. Chairman, which states that red tape is strangling America's energy supply. In the op-ed, we point out that 1 in 10 business owners say energy is his or her single greatest cost, ranking it ahead of wages, materials, and other investments. Additionally, another 25% claim energy is its second or third largest expense. Policies by this administration, like failing to approve the Keystone Pipeline, are driving up gas prices and prohibiting us from developing American energy. Just last month, I introduced H.R. 4381, the Planning for American Energy Act of 2012. Under the legislation, the Nonpartisan Energy Information Administration provides the projected energy needs of the United States over the next 30 years to the Secretary of Interior and the Secretary of Agriculture on what they will base for the 4-year production plans. My all-of-the-above energy plan requires that wind, solar, hydropower, geothermal, natural gas, oil, coal, and shale minerals needed for energy development be included in those plans. Enacting this plan will develop our resources here in America and assist with lowering gas prices and lessening our dependence on volatile foreign energy sources. I'd like to probably start out with Ms. Driscoll, since you haven't had any questions coming out. We know what's going on in the Middle East right now. If all of a sudden we do not have that flow of oil coming out of the Middle East, would you expect our prices to go up in this country?
If I base my expectations on historical data, yes. I should hope that we could generate enough fuels here in the United States to meet the need, but I keep hearing...
So you and Mr. Smith, you're small business people, and I'm a small businessman as well. You rely on a supply coming in. So would it be sensible for the United States of America, rather than continuing to say we can't do it because it's 5 to 10 years down the road, to finally take those reins in our hands to be able to create energy certainty for the United States of America? Would that give you a little bit of consolation and certainty from your businesses if you knew that that supply wasn't going to be cut off? And as a byproduct, you're going to be creating American jobs on American soil, developing American energy resources. Would that make sense to you?
It's a start. It's a start. I would hope that we could do it with a heavy emphasis on the safety of the American people with the processes used to harvest that fuel. That has got to be a primary concern that runs in conjunction, yes.
Absolutely, I agree. You know, we need some stability to this at some point for American businesses. So, you know, as a business person right now, I have to watch every dollar I spend because I don't know what's coming next. And so I have to hold off on hiring or cut back on hours that someone's working to make sure that I can keep my overhead down to make up for things like gasoline prices rising.
So is it accurate, Mr. Smith, because of the failures of this administration to be able to develop an energy policy for this country, you're having to direct your resources in areas that you'd rather be putting to productive use, like creating jobs, expanding your business, and expanding your bottom line?
I mean, you know, I truly believe that, you know, right now with the, if you know, I think most people call it the gridlock or the red tape that's not happening, to make sure that we have some sort of plan in place to, you know, help the economy, help businesses, help families, you know, with the rising costs of fuel and the unknown of what fuel will bring in the future.
You know, I think you bring up, you know, I know in my district in Colorado, we continue to hear the stories of struggling families that are paying $3.80, $3.90 a gallon, and they're making a choice. Do they fill up half the gas tank and buy a little bit of food, or what are they really going to do? So this is about policy, and I would like to maybe expand this discussion just a little bit when we're talking about the futures market, because I think that we neglect to point out the failure of this administration to be able to stand up for the strength of the U.S. dollar. We saw under the Reagan administration with a strong U.S. dollar, we can have economic prosperity. Mr. McNally, on the world oil markets, is that based off of the value of a U.S. dollar?
The role of the dollar and expectations of future dollar exchange rates and inflation rates is one factor that plays a role in informing oil prices.
So the weak American dollar is actually driving up costs to American consumers. Do we have any data to see how that relates as opposed to some of the speculative market in terms of the cost to consumers and businesses?
I'm not aware of government studies that have done that. I'm sure banks maybe have looked at that. So that's not something in the government sphere which I'm aware of.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, my time's expired. Thank you.
Ms. Summers.